We're live.
What have you been thinking about lately?
Bitcoin.
That was one of the best comments someone wrote on X. They were like, I find it so ironic that like now you're sitting there arguing with me and VITALY over whether or not all the liquidity coming into Bitcoin will actually protect the price. And like cut to 3 months ago, you're like, fucking Bitcoin. It's
I like Bitcoin. You're just looking for a 3x, dude. There's nothing that exciting in it. I don't know what you want.
Yeah, well, I don't get excited for that. But now you see. I feel like it's interesting going through this run, seeing it through your eyes, because you're like, you just watched this thing go up to $9,000. At this market cap, you would have probably argued 3 months ago that that's just not possible. Or that it would take a long time. It's a crazy asset class, isn't it?
Well, I also think the unique thing about me is that I've actually taken the time to study the fundamentals around it, the philosophy around it, the history of it. And that's what's given me a great appreciation. You know what's so interesting? I love Palantir so much outside of like the company because there's a story to tell. And as a communicator, it's exciting to tell that story.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is one of the greatest stories to tell in the history of humanity.
Oh, yeah. And we're alive. We're alive during
We're alive to see it.
This is as big of a transformation as when the internet first came online.
Yeah.
I think ultimately that's how it's going to be looked back. It's the literal digitization of money. But some private guy, Satoshi, who everyone kind of knows who he is.
Unknown Mirage.
Unknown guy basically digitized money 15 years before anybody was even thinking about it. And it just sat there. No, it's a pretty incredible. It could go down as one of the greatest pieces of software ever written, right? If you think about it, like an immutable ledger all around the world that can basically just suck in take everything, take any currency. It's a pretty insane thing, and we're alive during this part. It's good time to be alive right now. I mean, seriously, as tough as things have been in the economy, if 10 years from now, everyone in the chat, everyone that's following us isn't substantially more wealthy in this unbelievably opportunity-rich time, you did something wrong. I think it's even easier now than it was, when I first started investing.
Well, so having said that, what you said right there, I think immediately should transition us into the Sailor clip. So there's a 2-minute clip about what he says when someone asked him today, when will you sell your Bitcoin?
Oh, this was a good one. Yeah,
this was a good one. So let's listen to this and then we'll react to it.
Is there a price at which you would consider selling some of the Bitcoin, pulling out? So, I mean, because you can do something with New York City. You can live in New York City. You can have a business in New York City. What do you do with the Bitcoin besides it just gather value?
Well, the real estate developers in New York City, they're not buying the real estate because they want to live in it. They're buying the real estate because they expect
because they want to sell it eventually,
desirable.
Michael. I mean, let's be honest. Most of the people who are, yes, sure, some people pass it on to their children, but like most of the people who are buying assets at some point want to sell the assets at a profit. So let
me say it a different way.
Okay.
People that use fiat currency as a store of value, there's a name for them. We call them poor. Okay. Anybody that's rich in the world.
That line was wild. We'll talk about it in a second, but we'll let him finish. But that line was crazy.
They own property. They own large swathes of land. The royal family of England, it didn't sell all of its property in central London in order to buy currency or paper money, nor did the royal family of Japan, nor did the royal family in the Middle East. In fact, they want to own the property forever. I want you to imagine Bitcoin it's a city in cyberspace that's 276 blocks wide, 276 blocks high, 276 blocks deep, about 21 million blocks. Now imagine all 8 billion people in the world want to live there one day. They want to put their capital there. There's $900 trillion of wealth in the world. As people migrate from every other form of property and they've assets into cyberspace, you're going to see the Bitcoin network go from $1 trillion network to a 10x that to 100x that. And there really is nowhere else to go. It is the apex property of the human race.
What would you say to him saying you are poor if you sell Bitcoin to buy fiat currencies?
I think what he's saying is correct. And eventually that will seem silly when eventually they have a network where Bitcoin can actually be used to as a medium of value exchange. But for right now, it's predominantly a store of value. He's right. You don't try to buy something from the store with a piece of your house, right? You have
That's a really good point. It's a very good point.
That's an asset that you hold that has value, and the fiat currency is basically just a unit of transfer. So if you think about it, if all your money is in Bitcoin, then the inflation rate of fiat currency doesn't really matter. If I wanted to send you money, right, it doesn't matter. It only matters whatever the current value is at the time. I would take it out, give it to you, and you would go do whatever you got to do with it. That's what they mean by like the hedge against inflation. It doesn't matter because it's holding its value, and it'll just translate into whatever dollars or fiat that you need at the time. What he's saying is correct. He's a little bit front running it, I think, in 10, 20 years, right? Or maybe when the first generation of people are born after Bitcoin's inception, where they don't know a world without Bitcoin, maybe then it starts to become seen much more as the property that it is. Cash the fuel assets of the card.
Yo, Matt, if you're free, I'm putting the link in the chat. Come on the stream. Yeah, definitely come through. Come on stream and talk to us about what you
I was watching a video. If you guys are into crypto, I don't know how many of the people that watch this actually care about crypto, but if you do and you're not following Benjamin Cowan, you really should. He's been pumping out some great videos, so much so that I'm actually thinking of subscribing or paying for his app. It's just incredible the amount of data that you have. Essentially, he did a video the other day on Bitcoin's risk metric, and it's a trackable, targetable metric that you can track, and you can put it on a chart and you can see it. And right now we're in the upper bands of what we consider the risk territory. Does that mean that it's not going to surpass these prices? No, it just means that right now we're in a heavy risk, and meaning that a lot of people are in profit, right? When a lot of people are sitting in profit, what does that mean? There's going to be some pressure there to sell. And so I am adjusting my numbers as a result of this.
Let me read a note by Bernstein, and then I want to hear your numbers. So Bernstein, Wall Street firm, they put out this piece of news today.
Who was this?
Bernstein, like a Wall Street firm.
Okay.
So they said 150K on Bitcoin. In a note to clients this week, the firm told investors to buy Bitcoin miners as the recent underperformance is probably the last window before the halving. So as the cryptocurrency continues to rally, current trading above the $72,000 mark, the firm called the words of Satoshi Nakamoto, who told another forum member debating Bitcoin in 2010, if you don't get it, I don't have the time to try to convince you.
Wait, what's this? Farmer calls the words of who told another forum member, if you don't get it. Yeah, okay.
According to the analysts, Bitcoin miners remain the best equity proxy to participate in the rally. We are now more convinced about our 150K price target. So I'm bringing this up because you said you're adjusting your price target, and it seems like some of the big guys are as well. Bitcoin today is at 71K. We expected this to break out post-halving. We built Bitcoin institutional flows into our estimates to arrive at the Bitcoin price. We estimated 10 billion in inflows for 2024 and another 60 billion for 2025. In the last 40 trading days, ETFs already have 9.5 billion. So they're very bullish on Bitcoin, and they think the miners, this is a good dip to buy into.
Yeah, well, they're not wrong about the miners, say outperforming it. But again, this is short term. Like you can't say that that's how it's going to be next year, right? That's very correlated to Bitcoin doing well and the people assuming that the miners are going to be making that money and show it on their revenue and blah, 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 blah. So they're short term plays, but I wouldn't hold the miners forever. That wouldn't be something that wouldn't be the long term play. That's a play almost like an altcoin, where you play it because you know that it's going to run up. You do a money grab and you run.
Look at these distinguished gentlemen.
Maddie Capital.
What are you doing?
How are you guys doing?
We're good. So you're going to be the special guest for tonight. So we're just going to bombard you with questions.
Am I the sixth junkie? No,
I don't know.
Honestly, you're the fifth junkie because Steve fucking ditched us because he has work now. He has got promoted or some shit.
Oh, I was wondering.
Big Dick Steve,
big.
man.
He got too big.
High flyer, man. That might be me soon enough.
Are you holding? Like how substantial is your position in crypto?
That's not that substantial. I mean, I have a Bitcoin. I mean, and then I have some, I think like 4 or 5 Ethereum. It's not very big. I have a lot of Ethereum Classic.
What are your plans for it as a holder of it? Are your plans to cash out?
I think I agree with the 150 number, right? Because generally speaking, I'm a rainbow chart kind of looker. And you generally see the peaks always be 3 to 6 times the previous peak. And so with the last peak being from 21-ish thousand to the 67, which was the smallest of the peaks, right? So to me, I think that the 150 number is like a very easily attainable number. What I'll probably do is take sell about half of it, use it to buy more assets. I'm not going to go buy a Lambo or anything like that. I probably buy another house or rental or something like that. And then once late 2026 comes into play, I feel like we're going to see it dip back down to the 50, 60,000 range. And I'll probably continue to accumulate. And then I wouldn't be surprised if in 2020, I guess when the next cycle will be 2028, 2029, we see this thing go north of 300 grand. And that's kind of my thought process is like, I've been in it enough times now, you know, seeing it happen in 2017. I wish I loaded up more then. And then when it got to the 2019 timeframe, I was like, this is about to happen again. Let me get involved. And so I've been in since 2019. So I'm up about 450% on a lot of my crypto right now. And my only
in 2017, what can you describe what happened? Was that first, two questions? Was that your first crypto kind of crazy run experience? And second of all, how did you position the portfolio?
It's actually a really interesting story. So 2017 is when I really started finding out about GPUs and NVIDIA starting to freak out. And that was kind of like my first exposure. So AMD turned around because back in 2013, 2014, AMD was a $2 stock or something like that. It wasn't that long ago. And then I saw an AMD turn around. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then it got me intrigued as to, okay, Bitcoin was kind of the first thing that started coming to mind. Nobody believed that it would go above $20,000. It did. But at the time, I was actually mining Ethereum. Like as a hobby.
You were mining it?
Yeah. Yeah.
2017 you were?
Yeah. And I think I'll have to find some videos on my channel.
Was it cost insane? Was it a lot of money to mine it?
It wasn't very difficult, but the thing that was actually crazy was, and this kind of goes back to how cryptocurrency, you can't mine Ethereum anymore, by the way. It's all proof of stake now. But so that's why I switched to Ethereum Classic, because I do it for a hobby, like my work, or not my work laptop, my laptop that I game on, the one that I do all this crap YouTube stuff on, has a GPU. And so I just mine Ethereum Classic. But going back to then, me and a buddy bought I had bought 2 or 3 AMD 560 or 570s or something like that. And they were mining, I think, about 18 or 19 mega hash per second. I had 3 of them. And that was doing okay. Like I just bought like a little setup. I set it up in a little rack, a shoe rack that you bought like from Micro Center, and just like put it together, bought a motherboard, CPU. Is the first time I'd ever built a computer, and it was chugging along like 60 mega hash a second, and made a little bit of month. What's that?
A month. What were you making a month?
I don't remember, but at a peak, I remember we had upped it to 2 more computers, and at that point, and this is right at the curve where everybody started to get into, and GPUs were selling out like crazy back then. Mm-hmm. We were like, we're going to make $2,000 this month. This is fucking phenomenal. And next thing you know, the difficulty just started skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. And our actual like currency, the amount that we were actually mining, just kept going down and down and down. And that was kind of my first introduction. I learned so much from that experience. The thing that I said, I actually heard Jesse say the same exact thing that I did. I think we had spent probably like $3 or $4 grand in building these computers, maybe a little bit more, because we bought some secondhand graphics cards and we had some issues with those and everything like that. We ended up selling all those computers for about $7,500. So we doubled our money pretty much on the computers. But the amount of money back when we just started mining Ethereum, I think was at like $250 or $300.
Oh, in 2017.
Yeah, 2017. And had we just bought the damn fucking Ethereum, we would have had so much more. So I think at the end of the day, we only mined like 3.5 Ethereum after it's all said and done. And had we just spent that $3 grand, we would have had like 11 or 12 Ethereum,
right? And
we would have had 3 times as much Ethereum. But it is what it is. We still have that Ethereum. We're waiting until it goes to like some absurd number, and then we'll probably sell it.
We'll probably see 10,000 this. If Bitcoin gets to 6 digits, we'll see Ethereum in 5.
Yeah,
it just sort of seems to make
sense.
I
say we because it was a business venture between me and a buddy. Like I lived alone. I still live alone, but he had a family of 4, so he was like, I can't keep this in my living room. Like my kids will like turn it off or something. And they're actually loud, and it actually was nice because it kind of Yeah, it kept like it was the winter time most of the time when I was running them. So it actually kept the apartment warm, which was nice.
So when you're mining it, are you seeing a crap ton of code like start to be generated on a screen? Like what does your screen look like?
Yeah, if my computer doesn't crash, I'll show you.
You just have like if you have like the activity monitor on your computer, it's just pinned. So your CPU is just always working full power the whole time. And then
but what is it literally? But there's still code that it's code at the end of the day, these cryptocurrencies. Like
just seeing, well, back in the day, it was just like a, not even like a progress bar. It was just like a window that's open telling you that it's running. And then you can sort of see what you're earning, but it was tiny.
But then when you do the mining, it's also saved on like your wallet, right? It immediately goes to your,
well, the hard drive was the wallet. The hard drive.
Okay. Got you.
So it's saved on the hard drive. And if you lose that hard drive, then the coins were gone. But Matt, we were doing this back in the day. We were doing this early on, like in the 2012 era, like when it first became a thing. 2012, we were mining Bitcoin, bro, and they were like $9, $12, same sort of deal. If we just spent the money and just bought the damn assets and just sat on it for 10 years, I know a lot of people that ended up paying more for the mining gear than they did actually in their rewards back in the day. But still, man, there's another one of those opportunities. I'm like, I should have just thrown $5,000 into it. If I'm sitting there mining it, I should have just thrown $5,000 and let it sit. Whole different life today.
So this is what it looks like, right, Matt? Right now, this is
right. It's going through. It's checking it out. It's trying to figure out what the next. All it's doing is really just verifying the next transaction, right? This is Ethereum Classic, by the way. This isn't Ethereum. You can't mine Ethereum anymore. But
you make it bigger.
Can I make it bigger?
Yeah, just to see the words better. See what it's actually showing.
I just zoomed in on my screen.
Like
so I'm looking at it.
It was literally just a white screen.
That's so funny. Okay, so let's discuss this. Let's do this. But this is good that we got a chance to look at this. What is your philosophical understanding of cryptocurrency, Matt? Because as you said, it's a small part of your portfolio. You believe more in like a Google or an Amazon, so you're not kind of Michael Saylor all in on this, but you do believe in it. So how do you?
I don't have the balls of Michael Saylor, but I think if anybody's really honestly looking, and I'm sure Carlos has heard this one as well, so hopefully. If he hasn't, I'd love for him to listen to it, and maybe it's something we can find.
What, Rocket Lab?
No, Rocket Lab. It's 45th successful launch. No,
I did. I saw.
Yeah,
dude, I have to buy Rocket Lab, so when it goes up, Matt,
one share, $5 as an insurance policy. Is like
I keep hearing about it. And I keep saying to myself, in 10 years, if I hear that that's a fucking multi-billion-dollar company, like
no, because you know Matt, dude. Matt's gonna go on his victory lap when this shit's $20. Yeah. He's gonna tag everybody on Twitter who said "fuck Rock," including me, and he's gonna be like. And I'm gonna be like, I have 1,000 shares. That's $5,000. Dude.
You guys can't see it, but behind my monitor, there is literally a picture of a mitt that says when Rocket Lab hits 100. No, I'm just kidding. But the Patrick Bet-David had Michael Saylor on, and I don't know if it was his second appearance or third appearance, and I'm not going to do it justice, but it might actually be worth kind of pulling up. But Saylor basically went on this talk of, hey, I'm a 100 millionaire at this point. This is before he got into his Bitcoin stuff back in like 2015 or 16. I don't know when Saylor really jumped on the bandwagon for Bitcoin, but he basically was like, he was sitting there, had a 9-figure portfolio at this point, and he was like, well, he's like, at this point I had bought like $1 million house in Florida. It already appreciated to $20 or $20 million, not $20. And he was just like talking about all these different assets, and it goes back to what I was talking about with Carlos in the chat about like try to move $1 million of gold across the government border and see how easy that is. It's not, right? And he was just kind of sitting there going through all these different things. He was like, well, if you buy property, even the government, if you don't pay your property taxes, is going to be able to seize it from you. He was talking about all these different things that you can basically take wealth and transit it through time. And you obviously can't do that well with cash because it obviously has the inflation aspect. Right. And he was talking about how houses, while they might be a decent asset, you're always having to upkeep them. And then you also have the property tax piece, but also they don't really appreciate much more than inflation, if that makes sense. So he was just like, what can I actually buy that I can transit through time? And going back to what you said a bit, like I'm not like a maximalist per se, because I don't have the balls of a sailor. But the way that he described it was actually genuinely perfect, because he was just like, it's weightless. You can move it in any way, shape, or form. You don't have the governments that can say, hey, you need to pay this tax or that tax in order to move it. You don't have a financial institution to say, where's my wire fee handout? You can send it to whomever you want to, whenever you want to, and you don't have any sort of restriction. He's just like, so it's kind of perfect in that respect. And it's also unhackable at this point. I mean, maybe in the early days it was hackable if you had enough computing power, but there's so much computing power behind this now that it's virtually unhackable. And so it's interesting and really just able to kind of move throughout time. And it's like, okay, well, worst thing that can happen is that there's an EMP across the world that shuts in all the computers. Well, as soon as all the computers turn back on, it's going to be straight up on the last transaction that was in the ledger before it went offline. So, you know, there's
every computer has the same copy of the ledger.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone's just trying to fight and figure out what's the next transaction in the sheet. And then everyone's just trying to verify it. Right. I mean, that's the whole situation. That's what you were basically seeing when it was that big black box. It was literally just trying to figure out and verify whatever the most recent transactions were. And then once enough people verify enough transactions, it's then verified. And then that's the ledger, and everybody kind of follows along with that. But the first person to get whatever the latest transaction is gets part of the rewards. And that's really all that all these computers are doing. That's part of why we do it, is to be able to get a little bit of price of each transaction that kind of goes through.
So are you Satoshi?
No, if I was Satoshi, I probably would be on a beach somewhere.
No, you. That's exactly what Satoshi would say. They wouldn't say they were Satoshi if I asked them if you're Satoshi.
If you think that I'm Satoshi, then I have a lot of other things I could sell you.
See, so I said this on my stream the other day. I said this on the stream the other day. I can't be Satoshi. I can guarantee why I'm not Satoshi right now, if you guys didn't believe me.
Because you're good looks, or?
No. The reason I would never be Satoshi Nakamoto is because if I made Bitcoin, I need the attention, okay? I want everyone to know I fucking made Bitcoin, okay? Now, my life would be under jeopardy of dying, threat of dying, probably 24/7. But I need the attention. I cannot have that be anonymous. I need people to know. It's the attention core inside.
But you'd also be sitting on like 2 million Bitcoin or something like that. Nobody would even know who you are. You would be some.
No, I would start at, first of all, the amount of people that would follow me on Twitter, if I was actually, that alone would be amazing. The YouTube subscribers would go through the roof. So I think it would be worth it. Now, granted, I'd probably die very soon if everyone knew.
Yeah, there it is. Harold Finney. That's the guy.
The guy was actually a pretty
that's the guy.
I read the white paper the other day again. I read it many moons ago, but I wanted to reread it again. It's super simple.
Mm-hmm.
And then second, the emails between him and I forget who else it was.
On the forum, the posts. Yeah. And then when he got sick, suddenly the posts stopped. And that's when like, oh, that makes sense.
But you guys think this is Satoshi? Hal Finney?
That's generally.
Wait, really? People think this is the guy?
Yeah, but again, nobody knows for sure. But I've seen a lot of evidence, or a lot of people saying that this is the guy. Evidence like that, like some sort of anecdotal stuff.
Isn't Satoshi supposed to be Japanese though?
The writing of the white paper compared to like the posts that Satoshi had on the specific forums. Plus, he did get an injury that limited his ability to communicate, and then that's when the posts stopped from Satoshi. So, but no, I don't know if it's interesting. Sure.
Interesting. Okay, so Matt, why do you think it goes to 150? Do you think the halving event creates more ETF demand, or why do you think that's?
I'm just, to be honest with you, full transparency. I mean, I thought this thing was going to start going gangbusters in January. Just knowing how much. Yeah, I mean, just off of the ETF approval. I mean, I've been in GBTC for quite some time because I was always playing the premium, because there was sometimes it was like undervalued versus what spot was. Sometimes it was overvalued. And actually, one of the best stories that I had was there used to be something called, well, I think there still is, GDLC, Digital Large Cap, and it's mostly Bitcoin, but also has Ethereum and a bunch of others. At one point, that was like a premium of over 200%. So I sold that. and put it all into GBTC, just to kind of keep all my kind of like currency, cryptocurrency investments kind of mostly together. But the reason why I think it's going to 150, have you been looking at how much inflows have been having? I think I've read on your Twitter, actually, Amit, how much inflows. And I'm just like, this is what I expected, quite some time ago. But if you think how many people are starting to say, let's just put 1% of all people's savings, and even if it's a fraction of people's savings, let's just say 1%. There's hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of assets in the world. Even if you put a fraction of a percent, like you're talking about something that's currently worth what, $1.5–2 trillion. So it's like all that's going to be bought up and then literally just sitting there. So all the available Bitcoin that was previously going back and forth between us speculators is now going to be sitting on people's balance sheets. I think it's a very interesting time. I think it's unprecedented. I don't honestly know what's going to happen, but what I do know is that there's way more buying than I was really expecting this quickly. I was kind of demotivated and disheartened what I saw in January. And next thing you know, you start having these guys actually getting in hundreds of millions of dollars a day. It's very encouraging.
But it also takes time, and like it takes time for approvals to release the funds. So even if they're trying to front run, you still have to go through a whole process.
Yeah.
The other part of it is it was the pre-halving year, and that's typically what you see at the end of a pre-halving year, leading into the actual halving year. I think it's definitely pulled it up. I think the ETFs have definitely pulled up what should have been a run that we didn't see until after the halving, several months after the halving. But to your point, it used to be that they would recommend 1% allocation, but now the number's more like 2.5. That's what's considered like the maximum tolerable risk. So essentially what the institutions have been recommending allocation wise has doubled, right? Then you have the inflows into the actual ETFs. Then you have the actual halving coming up. And then you have news that we might get, or we will most likely get a rate cut before the election, even if you push it out to June. So yes, I agree with you. We'd only need about a $3 trillion market cap to get it to 150,000.
Is it only 3?
Yeah, about 3 trillion. Yeah, at the rate.
And I think 150 is honestly on the low end. I do agree. I mean, some of these people are saying 250, 350. I honestly think 180 to 200 was what the target is.
You got to look at going back to your rainbow chart. If you look, going back to the rainbow chart, if you look at, or if you want to even just pull it up, the last time we never got into the red band, we never got into the highest level of risk on the rainbow.
Let me pull it up.
Even though you can argue that there were a lot of macro forces happening at the same time, I'm starting to look at an exit, or I'm at least starting to scale out once we get into that like upper orange.
And are you just going to move it in? I'm curious. I mean, are you going to buy real estate? Like, what's the point with your?
You're going to buy Palantir, Matt. Obviously,
I'm going to dump it all in FOMO on some Palantir fucking leaps.
Then someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, if you see 40,000 open interest, it's me. No, the plan for this now. I have to make myself whole because I didn't sell out. I mean, I'm basically at the same portfolio value now as I was in 2021 when I didn't sell. So I'm not really going to start selling at this level. But in looking at the risk indicators, I started talking about this earlier. Once we start getting into the higher level risk indicators, depending on where we are in the rainbow chart, I think I start scaling out at 100. And I think at least take double my cost basis back. And I think the idea that would obviously sidetrack some money for taxes, but then really build out a portfolio in the stock market that can weather the downturn that I think is coming. So for me, what it's about, it's developing high share counts in a few stocks that I can then use to sell options against and make money for the bear market that I think is coming. You know, I think as a result of the election, maybe say the next year or so, I don't think they're going to be great. 150K. Yeah. And to that point, typically how they measure it is that they measure the run up, right, of Bitcoin from its low in that cycle period from since the last halving to the high. And if we were around 16,000, it would make sense that 160,000 would be the peak this time. That would give you your 10x, right? But there's a lot of forces why it could go even higher. if you look at just like rainbow chart
So,
shit,
yeah, let's explain this to me. So let's walk through this. What is going on?
it should be at $280,000, but
Yeah.
that's where it should be. Yeah, you just go on the rainbow chart and start sliding around. So the further
I see it right here. So
go towards the end of 2024 and see if that's where we are in the adoption. You could start to see what prices we would be in if we're in the individual bands.
okay, so December 2024.
December of this year. Yeah. What is it? That's November. Right. So look at December. 250.
Yep.
You see?
So 200. So on the low end, if we crash, we're at 28 grand. Medium.
Oh, that would be like the low buy. Buy. You could see, but
I'd buy a lot if it went to
28,000. But yeah, so you can see that if you have a price target set somewhere between 100,000 and 180,000, you're likely to hit that. That's going to be in like the next band up, which I think we will get into that orange band and the 113, 145 band. I think we're going to get into that band before the halving. And then typically from the halving, it runs up a bunch. I mean, Pomp was saying it'll double within 18 days, but it's so hard to time. That's why I'm just saying, no, I'm going to be diligent. I'm going to definitely get twice my cost basis out at 100, and then we'll see what happens from there.
So if it gets to 200, it's definitely a sell, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I wouldn't hold it this time because I think we said this before, but I think this will be the last halving event that you'll be able to participate in without profits from a previous bull run. Like once a Bitcoin is $50,000, I just don't see people dumping $50,000 to buy a single Bitcoin anymore.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
I can't.
You have people just instead just buying the ETF.
It will
just for the ease of it too, right? Because otherwise you have to go into Coinbase and then the spread on Coinbase. It's like
that could be it. My thinking is we get up to 150. We might have a short run up to a much higher number. That's totally possible. But I want to feel good and comfortable with my position after I exit around 150 on the way up. Maybe leave a little bit of something. But then after that, leaving some in the bank so that when we crash back down, I think we'll be in the $40,000-$50,000 range again. Which
you
if
think 40-50
are low, then I would see the next halving is when we start to see the $500,000 Bitcoin, because by then there's a lot of allocation. And if you're allocating 1% of the portfolio, let's just say that becomes like the minimum allocation, 1 to 2.5%. Let's say you're talking about that now compounding over years. You're saying from 2024 to 2028, 4 years of 2%, 2%, companies holding it on their balance sheet, more retail, more companies, countries coming online. I think you're going to see countries actually starting to come online or admitting that they bought Bitcoin. I mean, El Salvador has 2,000 Bitcoins. And they're up a bunch, actually. They're up several $1 million on it. So I think that's going to open up the floodgates and increase the adoption. And then by the halving after that, $1 million Bitcoin. But by then, we're talking 8 years from now. What are we? 2020? You said in 2030.
Take some time.
Yeah, by then maybe Tesla will move, do something.
Okay, talk. Oh, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's just funny because I don't know. If this actually repeats, Carlos, I'm just gonna be so in awe because it's the most predictable. I work in oil and gas, and you can't always predict it, but it seems like crypto is just, at least from a Bitcoin perspective, is so predictable that I was kind of ignorant to it in the 2013 timeframe. Okay, it jumped to $1,000. Woe is me. It's probably Fugazi. Then in 2017, I was like, oh, you mean you can actually mine this stuff? It's actually pretty cool. I started opening my eyes to it, but I never got fully both feet in the pool until I didn't even, I guess, fully in the pool until 2019, 2020. But I started dabbling my toes into it. And now I'm kind of sitting here, 7.5% of my portfolio is now crypto. I just double checked. And it's oh, okay. That's, pretty cool. I was always trying to get it a couple percent just in case it did double, triple. So that way, if it double triples, 2 to 3% ends up being 6 or 7% or something like that. And that's kind of what's kind of happened over the past several quarters. And so it's nice to kind of see. I would like to, if what you're talking about plays out. I'm at about a Bitcoin right now, and then probably a couple of Ethereum. I don't know. It's spread around so many different accounts. I need to consolidate it, to be honest. But if I were to say what my future is, not necessarily in 2025, but going into 2028, 2029, I would like to get to 2 to 3. That would be pretty badass. And then
Bitcoins or Ethereum?
Bitcoin.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because right now I'm just transparent. I don't have as much probably as you or Vitaly, but yeah, I would like to get to a couple Bitcoin. That would be pretty cool. And then just ride that off into the sunset. I mean, I would probably do what Sailor does and just borrow against it, buy a house, buy another property, and use it as leverage. I mean, what I've recognized is like real estate, everything is just, if you do it prudently, you just leverage against it. And that's really all it is. That's one of the reasons why I regret not buying the house that I'm living in right now, because I'm sitting here being like, damn, like the equity in this house, I'm always going to be able to reuse. Even if I move overseas again, which is potentially in the works, it's like, you know, I have that ability to be like, oh, 5 years down the road, how much equity do I have in the house? Where can I use that equity to go buy something else? It's like, you just get rid of all the cash that you can. It just goes to reiterate all the time. Get rid of all the cash that you can and buy assets. And that's all Sailor's trying to do. He's just using Bitcoin as his medium.
Real quick, we got a guest who just joined, a fan who just joined from the chat, so we'll do their question and then we'll get back to this. June, what's up, man?
June, let me see him. What's up, man?
What's up, my guy?
Hey, what's up? Sorry, I'm just about parking over right now because I was listening to you guys on my time.
This is why you need FSD. This is why we need FSD right now.
That's true. This is why we need FSD.
Be freaking podcasting.
Yes, I don't have FSD, but I mean, I was on autopilot just now, so.
There you go. High flyer.
Just I guess since I've been hearing you guys talking about crypto for like the past 30 minutes, and obviously kind of what's been going on in the news lately, I guess like I'm kind of curious, probably playing from like a devil's advocate perspective, more on like the philosophical side of like crypto is like all this time, probably before once the BTC like ETF got big at that point, or it became a formal thing, a lot of the, not even maximalists, but I think just the crypto fans in general would always say like, you know, can't be with institutions, like, you know, F the institutions, we just all have to be for ourselves, like, you know, we have the freedom of holding crypto and we don't have any other government like overseeing us. But then yet at the same time, because of these big institutions that bring in the money now and really bring in this next pump or this next wave where it becomes more accepted, kind of where does that kind of like we reap the benefit in that as a holder of cryptocurrency, specifically now in Bitcoin right now at the moment. But how do you balance between those two kind of dichotomy where you have the fundamental aspect of crypto, which is the freedom, what, you know, amid what you're saying with Michael Saylor's interview, of freedom of time, right, of being able to hold Bitcoin or crypto from one place to another, but yet at the same time, it's because of the institution that's giving this extra pump. Is this just more of like a catalyst, or is this like, I don't know, it's kind of weird to kind of hold those two with each other at the same time, if you know what I mean?
What it sounds like you're saying is how do you rectify these two seemingly conflicting ideas, that Bitcoin on one level represents freedom and decentralization, yet at the same time a majority of the market cap is now being held by institutions. So again, the power is consolidating.
Right, and then so you get this consolidation now, and where now you see BlackRock accumulating these massive Bitcoins lately, right? Like we hear them having to accumulate due to the ETF, and let's just say that these big institutions, they all accumulate the majority amount of Bitcoins that are out there in circulation. Then at that point, what does that landscape look like in terms of, you know, this is getting philosophical long term, like down
how
the
is
line,
it still decentralized if it's centralized within a bunch of institutions?
Right.
The network in Satoshi was really good at making certain things about Bitcoin, like making the sandbox really hard and defining what the rules are. And this is even down to like the halving events. It's very defined. What's not defined, or what we can't predict, is people's reactions to it, right? And so I agree with you. Yes, that one of the reasons why you buy crypto is that you can feel sort of you can feel like you're off the grid and that your money is safe from those forces. But you have to understand something. If you take what Michael Saylor said, and Bitcoin's actually property, then what that means is that at a certain point, we get to a tipping point where there becomes an arms race. It becomes how much of this can you own, because you want to have a controlling stake in it, because it is limited finite wise. There is going to be an issue in the future if like one guy, Michael Saylor, has thousands of these Bitcoins. He's
Right.
going to have as much, he's going to be able to exert as much force on the network as some of these big institutions, which is why we bought Bitcoin in the first place, was to get away from. The thing is, though, with Bitcoin specifically, I feel like all of the holders, their goals are aligned. Like Michael Saylor, especially now, if he continues to sell stock to fund the purchase of Bitcoin, he's really in a position where he can't sell. He'll start to collapse his own house of cards. At some point, I think he needs to stop. But I think him holding Bitcoin to preserve his own wealth becomes the same goal that I have, is to hold my own wealth. If I'm in early enough, like I would feel like I was in early enough and I can maintain my position, there's no amount that Bitcoin will be able to fall at some point in the future that would substantially affect me. I think that's the idea. That's the idea of like the gold rush over the next 10 years. It's like everyone's sort of vying for their position. It's like a concert, right? The gate opens up and everyone's rushing to get towards the front. But once you get a good position, it doesn't matter how many people come behind you because your position is still set. Does that make sense? You're still going to have a good viewing angle. So if you imagine the amount of money that is still to come in, then the prices that we're talking about for Bitcoin, the idea of even holding one will seem ridiculous. If you're at 500 or $1 million, think about right now, Berkshire Hathaway stock, which is the $300,000, or when Amazon stock was $3,000, made it really hard to purchase and own one share. And I think the same thing will happen to Bitcoin, but that's one of the reasons why it'll stay stable. I just think that it seems very expensive now, but if you think about it, it's only 8th in terms of the world's largest asset. It just passed silver, but once it gets to $5, $6, $7 trillion, it gets harder to move it both on the upside and the downside. Even if Michael Saylor's got 200,000 Bitcoin, does that make sense? That's how I'm feeling, because you're doing the same thing when it comes to real estate, also, which is another store of value. You know, you're doing the same thing, except it's sort of spread out. The risk is sort of spread out, but then you have macro forces to concern yourself with on the real estate side that you don't when it comes to Bitcoin. You don't have property taxes, you don't have insurance, you don't have maintenance. So
I think that this is a slightly, when all those folks were saying, you know, own your keys, don't let somebody else, don't store it on Robinhood, these were all when like FTX and Celsius and a lot of these other institutions were falling around, and they were all some of them were fake, some of them just over levered themselves, etc. And unfortunately, people lost a lot of their cryptocurrency because of that. You know, there will be a time, I'm sure, in the near future where one of these institutions unfortunately goes belly up, and there's going to be another situation and people freak out, and I'm sure there's going to be some sort of run on some of these ETFs. But I think the difference between what we had with Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is when I started investing in it in 2019, 2020 timeframe, was it wasn't necessarily a spot ETF. It was more of like a speculation at that point. So you could go above or below net asset value, versus what you have now, which is these true spot ETFs. You'll have the prospectuses that are on the websites, and you can physically see what the holdings are, and the value of that ETF is strictly going to move up or down based off of the holdings that it has and the price of what that holding is. So at the end of the month, you can go in and say, do they have more or less Bitcoin at hand? Now, the SEC can go in and double check that that's real, that they actually physically are holding that or storing it at Coinbase in this particular case, because that's where the majority of them are holding it. But the thought is like in the past, some of these institutions could have strictly said that they were holding your coins in their sort of treasury, but in reality, they were not. And that was kind of so now I think we're kind of in a different age. But to your point, still, we still have things like gold ETFs that do something very similar, where they sell way more paper than they do actually physical gold, right? So a lot of these guys are selling paper that say, hey, this is a trust of however much gold that we have at the end of the day. And it's, you know, so will there be more speculation on that end? That I don't know. For now, I'm trusting that these guys are physically, when they are buying this Bitcoin from all the inflows that they're getting, they're immediately going to Coinbase and immediately purchasing it from Coinbase and storing it at Coinbase, so that if an SEC comes in and says, let's see your Bitcoin, you know, you've now have $50 billion of Bitcoin under management, you know, let's go to your Coinbase account and actually physically see that it's truly there. But I guess you can't honestly determine that. Just like if you were to go to a bank and, let's just say I had $2 million and I wanted to go to Wells Fargo and say, give me my $2 million. It's like, give us a couple weeks. We gotta call up multiple banks. It's like,
dude, I tried to do a wire the other day and they were like, we can't wire your money. And I'm like, why? Yeah. They said some stupid. I was like, what is going on?
First and foremost, how much money are you trying to wire, my guy?
That was 15 grand. 15 grand. That's it. It was nothing crazy.
Mr. Moneybags over here.
A monthly heroin shipment, and I just
want VC money from figure. So,
but that alone, Amit, is a reason why. Like, if you wanted to move $15,000 in Bitcoin, you could do it instantly.
You could do it instantly. Yeah.
And probably a lower cost fee of, I'm sure the wire transfer is going to cost you $30 to $50.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. June, are you into Bitcoin? Do you have crypto in your portfolio?
I do. I go back as well too. I even do like these speculating miners as well too. I do like helium, where you use like a mobile antenna to create
helium,
a network.
Dude. My buddy at work does a lot of helium.
I'm in like the fringe area too, so I'm pretty in the game. And
what is your largest stock position? Is it Tesla or
Tesla? Yeah. Tesla's my largest stock position. And then it goes down to your Google and Amazon and Celsius actually. So I'm in KRIS's Patreon as well too. So I definitely followed up on that move for this past month, and that's been surprisingly climbing up the ladder right now. So I'm trying to see what's. Do
you have any Palantir or no?
Yeah, I do. Yes, in the $7 range. So that was
connection was about to get lost. That connection was about to get really spotty.
Exited right there.
Fine. Yeah, connection.
No, it's a $7 position, and then I sold some at $10 by selling calls on them, and then afterwards held on for my other positions on that. But yeah,
awesome. Thanks for joining, man. This was really fun. We'll have you on again.
Yeah, June, you probably know more about crypto than I do, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Because
no, I definitely followed along as well too. But
you know you know what you're talking about. You know what you're getting into. You know the risks. The thing about it is, it's not actually that difficult to understand. It's just all of the human psychological reactions to it is what we can't predict. It's what's the most unpredictable around it.
Yeah.
June is
June is
oh man, the amount of homes I can buy in San Jose here, that would be nice to do that. So all right,
talk later. Bye.
You're the man.
Take care. Thank you.
Well, speaking of Tesla, part of what I'm trying to do is I am considering Tesla dead money, say for like another year or so. And part of what I'm trying to do with the gains from this is to set up a portfolio that will continue to make money to allow the Tesla position to just sit there and be dormant. I can't time Tesla, so.
Okay, let's get Matt's thoughts. Matt, you were first of all, everyone follow Matt on Twitter. I'm putting his Twitter in the chat. You said something on Twitter today, Matt, that caught my attention.
I'm in trouble.
And what you said.
What did you say?
I didn't say much today on Twitter.
Do you might?
Me neither.
Okay, maybe I don't see the tweet, but I'm putting his Twitter in the chat. I think you said that Google is now 140, and a lot of people were talking shit when it was at 132. You've been very convicted on Google. You wrote a bunch of Seeking Alpha articles saying that everyone's just freaking out over the Gemini woke stuff. What are your updated thoughts on Google, and are you buying more right
now? Buying more. I'm broke right now. I'm waiting to just get a nice bonus on Friday. That'll be fun, so I can pay off some small things here and there. Was I buying more? I'm not buying more right now. I'm buying mostly Rocket Lab, if anything, but. I just think that everybody's. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say about the launch. I didn't catch it. I meant to look that up.
There, you're good. The thing with Google is everybody struggles with a lot of these rollouts very often, and it's always easy to point and put pie in someone's face. And when any of these sort of initial rollouts happen, and I think we just saw something very similar with Copilot the other day, right? So. I think everybody likes to.
Real quick, don't you think this is a little bit different, though? This is not like Google was that Google's was releasing their AI products on time, and there was an issue with them. Don't you feel like they were, first of all, late to the game? Second of all, they didn't take AI seriously, and they're in a much more reactionary position. Then they released the product and it sucks, or it was incomplete, and then that revealed other issues inside of the company culture. That's how I'm seeing it. This is more like they rushed the product out because they were late to the game, because they didn't see this AI thing coming, and they felt that people want a page of links forever. Don't you feel like that's more what the issue with Google stock now is? How did you guys not see this coming? And you've been asked about this on earnings calls. You've been asked about this, and you just downplayed it or made it seem like you had a plan.
I'm more of a firm believer that you don't necessarily have to be the first to the game. You just have to be the product that ends. I mean, Google's a prime example of that. The actual website, google.com. There was Ask Jeeves, there was Yahoo, there was a bunch of other search engines that really were to the game first, but Google's the one that ended up taking a lot of market share. The iPhone is also a perfect example of that. BlackBerry was probably what you would consider one of the first smartphones, and the iPhone came over and took over that. And then you also couple that with, there's a lot of Android devices all over the world as well. So there's a lot of opportunity still on that. So you don't always have to be first. And I'm a firm believer in that. You just have to have the ability to be there and have the moat around your entire organization to be there for the longest. And Microsoft is a good example of that, right? I mean, they weren't the ones that necessarily were, making and printing money off of the MP3 players or the tablets or anything like that. But here they are. They had a silent decade, but now they're back, roaring and challenging Apple as the number one market cap company in the United States. So, business is very tricky in that respect. I think a lot of people always assume it's a quarter to quarter race, and in reality, it's about who can stay in business the longest. Because I think
what would be your response to the fact that, okay, using your analogy that you don't have to be first, you just have to have the best product and the market will decide. What would you say to the fact that, hey, maybe OpenAI is that solution? And Google was late to the game, and we are seeing the number one player take market share, and Google could be more like a BlackBerry who tried to respond to the iPhone and was never able to recapture that market share back because the iPhone was just that much of a better product.
It's plausible. Yeah, it's plausible, but I think that there's still opportunities to get involved in the AI front that might not necessarily have to be a chat prompt in order for it to succeed.
But then how does Google make money? Like, say, most of how Google is making money is by serving you up a page of links and putting ads on the top, the bottom, the left and right, all over the place. And if the fundamental way that we search for things, where we go from looking for links to getting answers to things, just goes away. It just goes away. That's not even a business model anymore.
If it does, I think it's going to take many years for that to happen.
It'll take many years, but also if you think about it,
Why would it take many years?
Because my mom doesn't go to fucking ChatGPT. Like, the average person does not go to an LLM. They go to Google.
But even Google right now is doing experimental. Like when you type,
so they're either going to make money off the generative AI eventually, or they're going to still get blue links.
Okay, but when Google uses the generative AI, we know that they make a lot less money on serving you that answer than they do giving you the links.
It's going to have to change. I don't think it's happening in 2024, 2025.
But there's a lot of other opportunities and avenues as well, right? Like voice is one where you could say, hey, Google, put on my to-do list or to buy list a pair of jeans. Well, who's to say that they're not going to put a pair of Levi's on that list, right? On your Amazon account rather than say any other sort of, like, I don't know, American Eagle or something like that. Or you say, hey, Google, put black wafer cookies, and automatically chooses Oreos rather than the store-bought brand, right? There's opportunities for them to upsell on a multitude of different places.
But look, as the other companies start to ramp up their own AI, what we typically used Google for might not be necessary anymore. So here's an example. I've been really impressed with how Amazon has been rolling out its AI, and it's subtle. It's very subtle in the way that they're rolling it out, but it's actually incredibly useful. So if I go onto an Amazon, and I've been buying a lot from Amazon lately, and when you go to like the reviews page, you'll get an AI generated consensus of all of the reviews at the top. It'll say, in general, users like this about the product, they don't like this, and then you can go and further break it down. I've even seen Amazon make some really good detailed recommendations to me, AI chatbots, et cetera, et cetera. So now take this person that wants to go and buy a pair of Levi jeans. Are they going to be going to Google, say Levi blue jeans, or are they just going to go to Amazon and use Amazon's AI within the app itself or the service to get the answers that they need versus using Google to service them a link to get them where they got to go? That's my question. Like, as AI is now being rolled out by all of these individual companies, do you even need a traditional search engine anymore to point you in the right direction if all of these sites?
I think the smartest thing that Google could actually do is, instead of decoupling Gemini and Google, is really just make them the same website, because then you would immediately have,
I agree,
4 billion searches a day on the same website, and you could literally toggle whether it's a list of links like you're used to with a normal search engine, or if it's your Gemini equivalent or anything.
I haven't thought of that. That's a really good idea. I've not thought of that.
Depending on how good they get this, right? If you think about how far you could really go with this, like right now, text to video takes a while, but they're eventually going to get that so streamlined, or they'll throw enough computers at it that it's going to be really fast. So imagine now if you asked, I don't know, how do I make shrimp scampi to Google? If it could generate videos and actually walk you through it, there's a lot of value in that. I think eventually we got to get to some kind of subscription model here. The idea,
but I've never thought of what Matt said. If you take the 4 billion searches right now and you just turn it into an LLM and you expose 4 billion people to what is this like new way of giving results, that's a whole game changer in my opinion.
It happens if you go to a Google search and you type something. It should give you the same list of links, but above that, it should say, hey, do you want to try a new AI-powered search? And then it'll give you like answers underneath it that are more like a ChatGPT. Do you not see that when you go to Google?
I don't know, but this Gil guy has some stamina, and I'm impressed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to say.
Yeah. I mean, look,
I think Gil in the chat is saying that we aren't bullish enough on Bitcoin, and that's why he's upset.
The bullish case.
Is that why he's upset?
He's upset because he thinks
too scared to go all in on Bitcoin. Look, Gil, you're not wrong. The bullish case here, 657. The bullish case for Bitcoin is that you will all make money, but all of you guys are all scared to go all in on Bitcoin. Yeah, a lot of people are scared to go all in on Bitcoin in the same way that they're scared about going into anything. Wouldn't you be scared if you put all your money into a restaurant or a bar? You're risking it all. That's the idea behind it. But people just don't necessarily understand it. I don't know how long you've been in the game, Gil, but there's diminishing returns trying to convince people. You actually start pushing people away.
Well, he does have red eyes on his profile, so obviously
no, you guys are spreading lies and scared to go on Bitcoin. If you knew how much fucking Bitcoin I have, you would not be saying that. I have shown Amit my portfolio, and he's been like, "Damn, dude, how do you sleep at night?"
Yeah,
I'm
dude,
like,
if I had that portfolio, I would be staring at it all, especially now with it running. I would just look at it.
No, it's insane. And it's actually a lot harder than I remember holding with that much money. But that's why I am
Matt Money said Bitcoin can't be hacked or seized, but does not believe that. I don't think anyone's saying it can't be hacked or seized. We're just saying the odds of it being hacked or seized is a little lower than
if you've got Bitcoin in a cold. If you got Bitcoin on the exchanges and something happens to the exchanges, yeah, you're gonna lose your money. It's not FDIC insured.
That's like he doesn't believe it. It's like, well, why did I say it? Anyway?
Saying that it can't be hacked or seized. The network itself cannot be hacked.
But Carlos, you're right, man.
Gil reminds me of a fish. Because fish have gills.
I see what he's saying.
That is so good. Oh my God.
Get it. I didn't get it for a second.
Is that his pronouns?
Oh my God, it's great.
But Carlos, you have a good point, man. I mean, there is an absolute possibility. I just am a firm believer that there's a lot that has been going on at Google that we have yet to see, and there's more to come. But and to answer somebody's note, I think it was Ken who said, how could you stay the course with a company that is replacing the pictures of the founding fathers? It's like, I get it, man. There's frustration to be had, but I'm not going to let a select few that were given an opportune privilege tear down an entire company. I know plenty of people at other companies that have done the same, and hopefully it's being rectified. It seems like it is. But I understand the frustration associated with that, and I don't want to get too political about it, but I mean, there's a lot of that sort of weird wokeness that goes on, I think, throughout Silicon Valley. And I don't want to go into Palantir sort of quote here or Palantir sort of deep dive, but I think it's all honesty why Palantir left the Valley and moved to Denver as a whole is because of that sort of wokeness mindset and being driven by a political agenda where they said, no, we're not going to be driven by some sort of political agenda. We're putting America first, right? And so I think that there's part of the reason why I love Palantir so much. But I think that there's this. If you were to say, look at with a microscope or a magnifying glass on any company, I'm sure you'd find a reason to not invest in any company these days with some of the agendas that's going on with a lot of them.
I don't think the complaints about Google are people going and looking for it. It's actually really low hanging fruit. You know, the idea of what you're talking about Palantir moving out of that, it's this idea that in order to be great, you have to risk offending someone, right? You've got to risk offending someone. You've got to risk saying some things that people don't like in order to get to some sort of truth that actually does some good. And I wonder whether or not Google is too burdened by that. I think it was Jeremy or the BG2 podcast or a combination of them. They were talking about how some of these, we might be living through a time. I think it was Jeremy, actually. He went back in time 20 years ago and looked at what the top 10 companies were by market cap. Did you see that video? It's actually a really interesting video. So
yeah, it's actually a really interesting exercise. You look through the 70s, 80s, 90s. Yeah.
You start looking at the top 10 companies. So let's say 20 years ago, the top 10 companies were like ExxonMobil. There were maybe some what was it?
Microsoft,
yeah, some software companies.
GE.
And you start to see the change as the tech companies started to take over. And but that's not to say that we can't be seeing the same thing. It is very possible that Google just goes away like Exxon did at some point. They were even making a good case for Apple. Apple could just go away as one of those companies because they did not adapt fast enough. You know, I think the markets are running out of their patience with Apple. And so I think this next event for Apple, they really need to show some awesome AI tools, roll it out. Siri's got to be awesome. It's got to work. It's got to work with the Vision Pro. Like Apple's a company now that I don't think has any margin for error. I think they've ridden on their reputation long enough. And the same thing I say could be happening with Google. So if I had to bet on which two companies might get, say, taken out of the Mag 7, those would be the two. It was a great video. If you guys haven't had
it's a really good point, Carlos. I've a very long time ago, I did something that was like the 70s was a certain amount of companies. I don't know if I did the top 10, but it was top 5. But exactly what you stated, like the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, they were all different top 5, top 10. It's actually pretty interesting to see how the top 10 that was in 2010 and the top 10 that was in 2020 are actually eerily similar, which is unlike the previous 3 decades before it. Because exactly what you're stating, right? Like in the 70s, it was very much industrial focused. And then the 80s, it was more of the same, you know, but maybe a little bit more with respect to certain companies like GE and industrial conglomerates.
Companies of then GE, the telecom companies, the cable companies, that was the tech back then.
Yeah, exactly. So everything is just what the new tech is. So you have to think like what is going to be, and if these companies are able to be smart enough, like the problem that happened with GE is they didn't innovate as much, and this is part of the quagmire associated with
like one of those companies.
Exactly, it's the quagmire of giving back too much to shareholders, because shareholders, you know, when they'll take as much as they can get, when in reality you need to reinvest back into the business and do a very balanced approach. It's kind of why I'm fearful of what's going on at Apple and some of these other companies doing too many buybacks. And granted, because you look what happened with like Ultra Group, a lot of these oil companies, it's like they end up getting themselves into a corner where they're giving back too much to shareholders and they don't have the opportunity to then innovate. And so the same thing happened with GE. So like there's a lot of studies on this, that shareholder supremacy was actually the downfall of most organizations, because they just kept giving money back to shareholders and they stopped innovating their organizations. And eventually time keeps up and they don't keep up with the times and they end up being kind of obsolete. And you saw what happened to GE. GE used to be one of the world's largest companies, and it's no longer even in the top 30, I assume. Probably kicked out of the Dow if it hasn't been already. So it's kind of interesting in that respect. But the thing that's been beautiful is something like Microsoft has been able to keep up with the times technically, where they transitioned strictly from a PC to then the cloud to now they're transitioning to AI.
Yeah.
So it might give them the opportunity to stay with the times versus many other companies. If they go down the path of not continuing to innovate, they'll end up by the wayside, kind of like some of the other counterparts that used to be in the top 10 that are no longer.
Well, I think you can make a case that Microsoft is going to be one of those companies that will still be around in 10 years. They're a company that's looking to disrupt themselves, right? And
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Gil. I'm sorry.
Gil, what's your favorite?
Dude, Gil's a funny guy, dude. He's a very funny guy. He said we're all a bunch of clowns leading people to the slaughter.
I didn't want to cut you off, Carlos. You had a good thought that I'm sure you're about to make.
I think this guy's high or something.
I mean, look at his eyes. Someone get him some Visine. Like that.
Legitimately, I'm like,
someone get a Visine, bro.
I just don't. And I think he's supposed to be bullish on Bitcoin because of the red eyes, but I don't think he's bullish on Bitcoin. He's mad at us about Bitcoin.
Look, the thing is, though, there's two things that I'm getting bored of talking about, and it's Tesla and Bitcoin. Like, I don't even want to fucking talk about them anymore. I don't know how people feel in the chat if they're sick of hearing about it. I mean, I'm done. I've had these conversations for years, right? And so I'm done talking about it too. But you still, when something like what's happening now, it's hard not to discuss this stuff. I don't want to become the Bitcoin channel, but it's hard not to discuss this stuff. It needs to get, that's the wrong way.
Okay, let's end it off with this. Matt, you bought 2,000 shares of SoFi. Why'd you buy SoFi?
Did you buy today?
SoFi? No, I can't afford it today. I'm broke right now.
Dude, I was trying.
Matt bought the top. He bought it at 850. He's the reason we're down.
816.
What are we at? 7? I was trying to buy some today. I think I saw Kelly post and I was like, I want to buy some too. And then my order didn't go through. I was like, fuck.
I think SoFi, it's gotten to a place where, I mean, is it going to replace a Palantir or a Rocket Lab or I'm trying to think what other big positions, a Google or Amazon in the portfolio? Probably not, but I think it's a good store of capital. Do I see it having a 10x potential? Probably not. That would make it an $80 billion bank. So in the short term, I don't really see it. I could see it getting to 20, 30 billion. But I think it's going to take time. I mean, it's still a bank at the end of the day, in my opinion. But, I think it's a good opportunity. It's a good place to store a little capital. The alternative was to keep it in PepsiCo and Orsted. I think I had a very small position in Orsted. And I made 30, 35% on Orsted within a couple months. And so it just didn't make sense. I think Orsted's going to be another one that it's going to take about the next 5 to 10 years in order for it to double. So that one's a little bit tough, especially if you already made 35% or so on it. So the thought process was Pepsi, I don't really see it doubling or tripling from here, but I do see a SoFi doubling or tripling from here. And so,
look, I love the company. We have it for like one of our accounts, and I have the stock. I've got probably more of the stock than I should, and I still want to buy more. But like, what is the real separator? Like, I'm with you. I think it's a great stock play. I think there's like good, somewhat predictable moves in the stock that you can make some money, especially playing some of the options. Because again, my thing is now that after we have this year, I think we're going to pay for it. I don't think the economy is doing as well as we think. I think everything's being propped up, but we're going to have to pay for this. And so I think the next 2 years are not going to be that great in any markets. And so I'm trying to set myself up for something that I can sort of option out. SoFi is going to be a great one. But I mean, what does the company really have that I can't do with other companies? I'm trying to look. I'd love to see them have like an AI financial advisor or something.
I'd like to see them.
You think they're undervalued right now? That's also like. You think
I don't think they're undervalued. I think they're appropriately valued. I think it's a good store of capital for the next 5 years.
Yeah, like at these levels, if you're buying now, I think you're safe.
Yeah, I don't. It'd be a screaming buy if it was back down in the $650 range. But $8, I think $750.
$4 in 2022. Like we could still drop another 50% right now.
We're not going to $4 on SoFi.
But I'm just saying, just because when you start thinking, because it's a low, it's $7. How low could it go? It should go to zero.
Yeah.
There's still downside to be able to accumulate or buy some more. If you did.
But I mean, Gil, DM me on Twitter and we'll do the debate on Finance Junkies. What does he want to debate you?
I don't know what he wants to debate me.
He wants to debate me about something. Dude, let's do it. DM me
on
on Twitter. Let's set it up. We'll get a time, and Saturday we'll do like a 12 p.m. debate or something. We'll do it.
Yeah, and well, speaking of debate, because we've been on for a while. Is there anyone that we should bring on? This is for the chat. Is there anyone that we should bring on to debate aside from Gil? Obviously, is there anyone that we should bring on to debate about anything? Any channels?
We need to debate some like crypto bears right now. Like
I wouldn't even want to go into.
Get Michael Saylor on here. I'm
gonna reach out to his PR team, dude. Maybe they actually.
But admit, did you I have a serious question? So SoFi, I don't really have a great reason other than it was better than Pepsi and Orsted, and I think it's a good store of capital. Is either put it there or the S&P 500, and I think that probably in the short term, SoFi is better likely to double in the next several years than say the SPY.
Yeah. But obviously, didn't we put in a new high yesterday?
Today, I think so.
On S&P, S&P.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. We're like, does it feel like the thing is? Does it feel like we're at a top right now?
Yeah,
markets.
I think there deserves to be a pullback for sure.
No, but I'm saying, well, yes, in the markets, yes, but
I don't think we're at a top. No, I don't think we're at a top.
I don't feel like the last few times the markets have been ripping. I haven't felt that like in my personal life. There's been a bit of that disconnect. So maybe I'm.
But crap.
Dude, Nvidia's at 930.
This is what I'm saying.
But I think it's kind of justified. I don't think it's that crazy. Go ahead.
It'll be justified, but there's going to be a point where that multiple gets cut in half.
It'll flatline.
That multiple is going to get cut in fucking half, and it's going to be brutal. And you know where the money's going to go? The money's going to go to the companies that are bought those GPUs and are now using them to build software on top of that.
And even if that happens, the market's still going to be great because then all these other companies are like Palantir, Meta, and like
but Vitaly tied up. Why isn't he on here?
Vitaly has that work.
It's too smart for all of us.
Wait, what were we gonna ask, Matt? What were we gonna ask?
I was gonna ask. Did you see that? Specifically, you, Amit. I'm sure that Carlos saw it. Did you see that Patrick Bet David interview with Michael Saylor or no?
Oh yeah, a while ago. Yeah.
That was a while ago. Yeah.
I mean, he's been on several times, but the one where he was talking about transmitting wealth through time.
Yeah. And that one.
Did see that.
Yep. I did see that, and he makes a good point. Every time I watch that guy,
I was flabbergasted the first time.
You're like, that's a really good point. But
that's when I was getting orange pilled like a couple months ago.
Yeah, no, he's definitely will orange pill the fuck out of you. But there is a danger. I'm not gonna lie. There is a danger having that one guy holding so much Bitcoin. I mean, there's a danger in that consolidating all that power. Or fortunately, I don't think that. And by the time we would have to be worried about that, I think there's so much time before anything like that would play out that we would.
Can't believe he's almost at 1 million Bitcoin.
No, he's at 200,000 Bitcoins.
200,000. Okay.
But he's one of the top holders. I think only maybe the Chinese government and like one or two others hold more Bitcoin than him. But he's getting close. I think he's, what did he say, 5,000 Bitcoins away from owning 1% of it.
Kind of it, you know.
That's
okay. I was thinking 10%. Okay.
No, 10%, he's God. I mean, at some point, at 10%, he's God. But I mean, at the rate he's going, if he continues to do this, and we've got, say, another 10 years of like accumulating, because look, by the time the next halving or the halving after that happens, like 99% of all the Bitcoins out there. So that's it.
Yeah.
You know, there's really
it's like 2030 or 2032. I forget. 2032.
By 2030 or 32. Yeah. It's like 99% of all the Bitcoins there. And 2140 or something is when the last Bitcoin's mined. But you're talking about, by then, miners are not even working for Bitcoin rewards anymore. It's just going to be fees. You're making, 1 Bitcoin or 0.75 Bitcoin. It's going to be worth it.
Someone said Gil's Chris Patel's partner.
That's actually pretty funny.
You know what's ironic? What's ironic? Because Gil's going off about me on Robinhood right now. Chris and me talked 2 days ago, and he was like, "Damn, dude, Robinhood is great. That was a great call." So it'd be funny if it was just the opposite in the chat. He's like, "Fuck you."
That was a good call. I wanted to give you props for that one. That was
you got Robinhood, but yeah.
I still think we're gonna run, dude. I think 25 end of year.
Listen, I think so too. That platform, I'll tell you right now, all the money that's coming out of Bitcoin that's not going to pay for shit for myself is all going into Robinhood. I'm starting a separate brand new account, and I'm just gonna.
Oh, like an actual account, not the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I have one.
The 5%.
I have one because I wanted to do some spreads actually, and it's fucking impossible on E-Trade.
I opened up a
Robinhood
Schwab
makes it so easy.
Bad.
I opened up Schwab and Fidelity the other day just to like go through the experience because I want to put some money in there that I just don't look at.
But why?
And I'm like, dude, this thing is like the worst thing on planet Earth, dude.
I have friends of mine that love trading options and they don't. they don't do it as much as they can because the Schwab interface is so awful. Like you could do it. I could open up, I could, sell a leg and then open a leg, but the way Robinhood coalesces it together and the data that you get on
So
that
easy.
trade,
I was just like, people in my
That's
generation.
what I do.
cannot
Every
do
time
this.
I go, I pull up my phone, I pull up Robinhood, I see what option I want to trade, I make the decision on Robinhood, and then I do it on my desktop on Fidelity.
Right.
There's
I'll
no
go
way
just
I'm gonna. There's
there.
no way I'm gonna do the research on
No, you
Fidelity.
can't.
It's
You can't.
absolutely awful. So
It's the research. It's also knowing like things like your break even point or being able to see how that options value changes over time.
yeah, the Delta, the Vega, all that sort of
It's
stuff.
so fucking nice on Robinhood.
I'm surprised. Robinhood's been out now since
2020, right?
2019.
a lot longer than that. I mean,
All right, 2019, 5 years.
Well, 2015 is when it started, but
All right,
2019
really?
And-
When the stimulus checks started coming in, Robinhood had like a record of $1,200 deposits over that fucking.
But like, I'm just surprised that these guys haven't been like, oh, I think we need to really change our user interface. Maybe
It's
they're
bad,
just like,
dude. It's bad.
Dude, if Robinhood does a thing where they take some of that money and they pay or somehow fund financial education in schools,
They're already doing that.
but like on a mass scale, we don't have enough of these kids participating in this. You make a version of it for like kids to make like a watch app, a watch portfolio, make them have like mock portfolios, and then
those kids stay with Robinhood forever.
And then they can graduate. Like make a version of it that's like for kids, and then then be able to graduate up, bro.
Yeah, it's gonna be
the app is so nice. All right, gentlemen, thanks for coming by, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for being on
appreciate
Matt's Twitter. Let me put it in the chat. Please make sure to follow him at Real Matt Money. He's just like a good guy, first of all, and he also knows what the fuck he's doing in the markets. So
I paid him to say that.
right.
And then your Bitcoin's in the.
he paid me an Ethereum Classic.
Yeah. Actually, Ethereum Classic. I'm excited, man. If it pops off a little bit, I got a lot of that. So hopefully it does.
How correlated is it to?
The other day I was looking on like the past month, and it was like it was hovering around 1% of Ethereum, but it's kind of diverged a little bit because Ethereum's still at like 4K, but Ethereum Classic sold off a little bit. So I'm kind of hoping that it gets back to kind of on par with 1% of Ethereum, because I think Ethereum's gonna go on a jog.
Look, if you're holding that Bitcoin and you want to sell it, this is what you want to see. What you want to see is start seeing the altcoins bleed against Bitcoin. This is what I'm looking for now to see. Okay, it's starting to happen. We're starting to get really toppy. Where people that no longer have money but have other crypto positions convert their other cryptos into Bitcoin. So if we start seeing the price of Bitcoin, if we start seeing the price of Bitcoin going up, but the total market cap of crypto doesn't change while Ethereum and all the altcoins bleed against Bitcoin, that's when I feel like we're getting really toppy. And if that happens right around the $100,000 price, I'm going to exit. At least take a piece. Exit.
Can't get hurt taking a profit, man.
Last thing, make sure to follow Matt on YouTube as well. He has a podcast with KRIS called Cash Flow Chronicles.
Hold on, Gil, who's calling a top? Who said calling a top?
Dude, this Gil guy I think he's just
calling a top, thinks he has an edge and can time the market. No. Well, we're looking at our indicators to give us confidence to make decisions one way or the other.
I hate when people say you're trying to time the market. Dude, everyone's trying to time the fucking market.
No one's trying to time.
Everyone in some way or another is trying to time this shit, right? We're thinking of Bitcoin.
Timing the market is saying, oh, at this time I'm gonna sell and it's gonna be the top. No, it's saying I've invested this much. When I'm up this much, depending on how it runs up, I'm gonna start trimming my positions. You DCA out the way you DCA it in.
No.
Okay, anyway,
I'm with you. I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna do the same. I mean, I have a mental goal in my mind to where I want to get my equities portfolio, and once my equities portfolio gets to that point, I'm literally gonna start trimming that as it grows and grow my real estate portfolio. I mean, that's the
exactly
that's the goal.
Exactly.
Make sure to follow Matt, Cash Flow Chronicles with KRIS. It'll probably be back next week or on Thursday because KRIS is busy this week. And make sure you subscribe to that channel if you're not.
Thank you guys. Much appreciated.
Real quick, I might have something that's worth sharing before we go. Hold on. Let me just see if I can find it in my.
You're pregnant again.
It's a Bitcoin. Leave him in there. Leave him in there. Where was this one?
Let it grow. Don't sell.
Let it grow. 9 months. No.
Gil is getting a crazy reaction from us. We gave him so much
He's
attention for
trolling,
no
he's
reason.
trolling.
And I don't want to ban him because I don't want to censor someone for no reason. But
Here, can I?
What's killed YouTube?
I'm gonna play you. I'm gonna send you a link in the chat, Amit. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Is that Gabe?
Oh!
Is that him?
Wasn't he? Yeah, the NVIDIA
Here,
play didn't work out.
Amit, play this link. This was interesting. I think you'll
Imagine
find
that's Gabe, dude.
It's
from
Kramer's
Shane
burner.
So play
KRIS.
this one.
Kramer or Gabe.
So I'll read
Oh,
this. This
okay.
is a
So
guy-
I found a guy who goes around Miami asking millionaires how they got rich. Okay.
funny enough, they all say the same thing. So you go through.
But
There's a thread on.
there's no video. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay.
These are the threads. So he's asking different people how they made their money.
How old were you when you became a millionaire?
32. It was actually in 2021. We had a huge year. That year we made $400,000 or $500,000 and got over that hump. And now just trying to grow on that.
What's been the best financial advice that you've received throughout your career?
Buy real estate.
Buy
That's
real
it.
estate.
That's it.
But for someone who wants to get started buying property, they want to make their first move in real estate today, what would you tell them?
I tell them get your first property with a FHA loan. It's only going to be 3.5% down, and then house hack. So if you're in your 20s, you're just hanging out with your boys anyways. You live in one room, rent the other two ones out, collect all of that money, save it, don't waste it, don't spend it on cars or watches or anything. Then buy your next property, move the whole crew, put a family in the previous home, and continue to keep doing that. And I say that because it's exactly what I did.
Go to the next one.
A question for you. Sure. If you were to go back to when you were either high school or college and you're having a conversation with your 20-year-old self, what is the best piece of advice that you would tell your younger self?
Well, if I'm 20 years old and I'm in high school, I would tell myself to get my shit together. Dumbass, 2 years late. If I was in college and I was 20 years old, stop chasing girls and drinking beer. Just because you make a bunch of money, don't go out and buy the Porsche with the whale tail and all that.
What was the most amount of money that you ever made in a single year?
It's in the 7 digits.
What industry did you ultimately pursue a career in?
Commercial real estate.
How can someone break into commercial real estate in today's world?
It's all relationships.
How old were you when you became a millionaire?
34.
What was the best financial decision that you've made throughout your lifetime?
Buy real estate.
Buy real estate.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So real estate.
I mean,
That's.
out of I think there's 15 videos, and 80% of
Yo,
them.
I'm gonna be on his channel one day, and they're gonna be like,
I mean, how'd you make money?
I'll be like,
I had a startup.
spreads. I bought some spreads, baby. I brought
Spreads.
some spreads. You're like, look at that. It's like, it's this magical world. It's this magical world.
I streamed for 18 hours a day.
And I bought some fucking spreads. That's what
And
I
then
did.
took that money and bought real estate. No, but I think that's the idea. I think that's the idea. The idea is like, obviously, if you could have a portfolio of 10 properties where you were making $2,000 a month positive cash flow on all 10 of those properties per month, your lifestyle is paid. The loans.
No,
on all
I agree with
that
you.
is
So we
paid,
know what you're gonna do when you
and
sell your Bitcoin. You're gonna get into real
I
estate.
think that's the idea. And if unless you're independently wealthy, you have to generate the money to be able to feed the next piece. And for me, this is what this level is. Crypto and stocks are to feed a real estate portfolio, which will eventually create the freedom. That I think is the idea. And so I'm like on level 1 going to level 2. You know,
That's
All right.
that's exactly what I mean. I
the
plan on
investing
buying-
Kardashev scale. We're trying to
wanna buy
become a
another-
level 1.
I want to buy another beach house. The first beach house is doing so phenomenal.
All right, so the next Finance Junkies Con is at your fucking
At
beach
Matt's
house.
beach
Why
house.
did you never tell us you have a fucking beach house?
I thought that's not
Why are we going to Vegas?
Why are we doing Vegas? We
Why
can
It's
just-
not that big of a
Vegas,
house.
You got a fucking beach house?
there's only 10 people that can fit in it. Unfortunately,
we can
It's a
literally
small
pay
beach
you
house.
the Airbnb fee at your place. That'd be easy.
Seriously.
that I wouldn't mind. I'll even discount it depending on what time. If you do it not in June through September, it will be heavily discounted.
He's like, no parties though.
No
Yeah, no
party.
parties. Yeah.
It's like we can only and no streaming. You can only sit down and play cards. That's it. All right.
All right,
This
thanks.
is awesome.
guys.
Thank you,
400
Matt, for
people.
joining. We'll see you guys
Thank you,
tomorrow.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.